Good morning, one and all, and welcome to Professional Insights brought to you by the National Referral Network. This is where we offer, you guessed it, professional insights from professionals that have consented to joining us for the benefit of everyone. We hope this morning's discussion will benefit absolutely everyone because it's Marty Stevens-Heebner. Am I correct?
Yes, you
I,
got all E sounds.
I,
Yeah,
I
you got it.
never asked you that, so I probably should have before we started talking.
You got it
Um,
right.
so Marty does something very unique. Oh, by the way, before we get into discussion, if you like what you're hearing, hit the subscribe button at the bottom. We really appreciate it. You can get all this content fed to you on a regular basis. But Marty, back to what I was saying, you do something really unique that I think is so incredibly important. You help with what we call, I guess you would call it senior transition. It's senior citizens who are transitioning from one stage of life to the other. Okay. And all the things that go with that. So, why don't I start there? Describe to me briefly exactly what that entails.
Well, for us, I always tell people if it's seniors and or stuff, call us because we've been doing what we do for over 11 years at Clear Home Solutions. And basically what we do is we take care of all the personal property, all the treasures and heirlooms, and then everything else, because there's a lot of everything else. And through our move management services, downsizing for aging in place, estate sales, uh, setting up donation pickups and haul away. So that basically when we're done, the person is moved in to assisted living usually, and the home is cleared out. So it's ready for sale or lease, or, maybe one of their adult children to move into. So
Okay.
yeah. And
So, essentially, it's if somebody is ready to make the transition, say, into assisted living,
mhm.
you're going to help them with everything that needs to happen from organizing, I don't know, the junk drawer in the kitchen to purging the garage of, I don't know, 30 years worth of junk, all that stuff.
Oh yeah, and also we're hoarding specialists. I always say it's a treasure hunt. When you're dealing with a hoarding situation, it's a little more like an archaeological dig. The treasures are in there, but it takes a little while, and you get kind of dirty finding them. So yeah. Mhm. But yeah,
And,
because there's so much sentiment, so much emotion around people's items. And it's really taking them through that. I like to say we are where compassion meets know-how, because we can be very efficient, but sometimes part of that efficiency is just sitting there and listening to the story of something. And
mhm.
then people can let it go because they need to let go of a lot of things. If they've been living in their homes, their 3-bedroom homes for 30 years, and they're moving into a 1-bedroom apartment, say, in assisted living.
Right.
Yeah.
I was mentioning to you before we got on that since meeting you, I've met so many people who because I've told them about you and what your firm does. Clear Home Solutions, by the way, probably should have said that at the beginning.
It's
Um,
okay.
uh, so many people have said to me, "Oh yeah, I'm going through that with my dad," or "I'm going through that with mom." So many people have this story in common with aging parents, and they always talk to me about how difficult it is because they so often their parents and these seniors, they don't want to let go of anything. This is not territory that's
Mhm.
ceded easily. How do you approach the more emotionally difficult aspects of it?
Well, what we do, and we are officially called senior move managers, senior and specialty move managers, and we have a national organization, the National Association of Senior and Specialty Move Managers. We just call it NASM.org, NASMM.org. And the reason I'm emphasizing that is because Clear Home Solutions operates in Southern California,
Hmm.
but I'm president of the association. There's over 1,000 members, mostly in the US, but Canada, England, Australia, New Zealand. So there's a lot of us, and you can go there to find somebody in your area. So, in terms of dealing with the sentiment, um, to do what we do in my company, you have to have a lot of empathy. You have to be able to put yourself in their shoes and recognize that a big part of them not wanting to let go is because they don't want to move. They've been there for so long. And remember that moving is one of the top, depending on which study you look at,
Hmm.
it's one of the top 3 to 5 stressors in life. That includes death, divorce, all of that kind of thing.
Right.
So I don't care if you're 22 years old, everything's in a backpack. It's not relocation, it's dislocation. And you feel out of joint till you're settled into your new place. Now imagine having lived in a home for 40 years, and it's time to move, and you have to move. And not only is moving just feeling like a nightmare, but there's all those comforts of home, things you understand, you know the neighborhood, and you're moving into an assisted living place, which ends up being wonderful because you don't have to cook. They take care of the cleaning. If you someone to sneeze, there's someone to take care of you. And most importantly, there are all these other people that there are activities with. They remember they're your contemporaries, so they remember things the way that you do. Like they remember the '60s as an adult, a young adult, that sort of thing. But one of the most important things that people need to keep in mind is they're very fearful. And I had a client years ago say it out loud, and she just said, "I feel like I'm moving to the place I'm going to die."
Wow.
And the important thing, if you're dealing with either a family member or a client or that sort of thing, you have to realize that you cannot say, "Oh no, it'll be fine." You'll be fine. They really are feeling this, and so you don't object to what they're feeling. Just what I said to this client was that I understood where she was coming from. I get it. And keep in mind, no, it's okay. And keep in mind that you're moving to this place where, they cook for you, they clean for you, etc. And I said, you have a whole third act to live out.
Right.
And given that she used to be a diva, a singer in Hollywood, that really appealed to her.
Wow.
But underneath it all, they don't usually express that sentiment, but it's there.
Right.
And you need to be aware of that and accept it and just gently help them move forward. Be patient.
And I would imagine this also would involve family members, sons, daughters, spouses maybe, and I don't know. Does that make the transition all the more difficult, or are you able to enroll the family members in the process where they can also provide support?
You're going to hate my answer. It depends, because every situation is unique. It really is. Here's the thing. I will say that when family members try to handle this with their parents, just think about it. Family members naturally just bump heads. It's normal, especially when there's stress involved.
Yeah.
And in this case, your parents remember that, I don't care how old you are. You could be, I'm 62. You could be 62, and your parents, your parent still remembers remembers changing your diapers. And so that's part of where they're coming from. And you're trying to, basically guide the transition. They feel like you're telling them what to do. And so that's very annoying to them. And then on top of it, they do feel that they can tell they're getting older. They can't do as many things. They're forgetting things. And so there's also that whole thing where they feel like they're losing a bit of a grip. And so combine that with the family dynamics, and you got a potentially explosive situation, which you don't want. And we get in there. Sometimes we're refereeing. And we know how to do that.
Have you, and I don't necessarily say this whimsically, although I'm sure you've got great stories. Have you, in the case of somebody who is well off, have you seen family members maybe maneuvering a little bit so that they can curry favor? Does that happen?
Yeah, it does. It does. And again, and we know how to recognize that. And it depends on it really. Again, this is when things are always very unique. So it's figuring out the best way to handle that. Often we are part of an alliance around an older adult. So maybe we've been brought in by the estate planning attorney or a care manager, an aging life care specialist. And so we're working with them. And so we kind of can work together to ameliorate that situation.
Okay.
Because you don't want to have undue influence. I mean, there are times when it really can veer towards criminality. And then sometimes things disappear. I mean, I remember we've been brought in over the years. I remember one situation early on where I arrived to do a consultation, and I believe a parent had passed away. So it was the daughter and I think her husband. And we walked into the walk-in closet and there was a drawer that had just been demolished. Clearly it had been a locked drawer. And apparently there was all this Bulgari jewelry in it that had just disappeared. And the caregiver had fled the country.
Ooh.
So, and then there are children too, who, I mean, there was one instance where I think it was the mother who had maybe something like $120,000 in her savings account. Mm-hmm. And her son got her to write him a check for $75,000 of it.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah. So you hear horrible stories like that.
And when you see incidents like that, not that they're common, I think these are more about the exception rather than the rule, at least I would hope. Yeah. When you encounter something like that, what steps do you take? Is there a path you follow to alert whomever about that kind of thing?
Well, in our case, it's sometimes, by the time we come in, it's already happened, unfortunately. But when we do discover something, again, we have that alliance. And so if there are an attorney will alert them if we discover something. We'll alert the other family members involved. Okay. So that they are aware of what is happening. And if they need a referral to an elder law attorney, we have plenty of people to refer.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and because this is, again, this is put on this live stream is put on by the National Referral Network. We very much believe in the idea of working in teams. Attorneys working alongside tax people, working alongside financial advisors, working alongside certainly people like you for elder transition. How important is that kind of teamwork to your work?
Oh, it's vital, because we need to keep each other up to date about what's going on. And above all, let's not forget that older adults need a multitude of services because they have so many needs. And the families too, I should say the older adults and their families have so many needs collectively. And so you do need a team, an alliance around people so that you have all that expertise at hand. Because let's face it, the adult son, if he's not a lawyer, is not going to know law. And the adult daughter, it's usually the adult daughter who takes care of things. If she's not a CPA, she won't know about taxes and things to keep in mind like that. Yeah.
How important do you think, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. How important is it that this be planned maybe years in advance, that you get together with the family and say, okay, you know what? I know your mom is in her right mind now, but what if 5 years from now she's not what she was? How do you broach that conversation in the beginning so that everybody's on board, especially the person who's at the center of it?
Yeah, that is very challenging, because as it is, you need to realize that it's hard enough to get our clients to start letting go of their items, especially their treasures and things like that, and to get ready to move, to get their mind prepared, to get them really looking forward and keep them moving forward steadily so they don't stall. So that's the big thing.
Okay.
When we find out that they don't have an estate plan or a healthcare directive,
right.
We recommend estate planning attorneys. It's a matter of gently coaxing them. If one of the adult children is involved, we'll tell them, they don't have an estate plan. And that child often says, he won't do it. Like, my dad won't do it. And I said, do you have yours together? Because one way to convince them to do it is like, you know what? I need to get my estate plan together, Dad. Why don't we do it? Why don't we do yours and mine together? Let's both get them done. We'll encourage each other. So that's one way to do it. Mm-hmm. You can't order them to do it because, again, especially if you're the adult child, they remember you in diapers. They remember you in kindergarten. They remember you being a very ornery teenager. Mm-hmm. So that's challenging. So it's really, it's trying to coax them maybe to do it together. Or when you're sitting there, talk to them and think of it from their point of view. like by asking them, what do they want their legacy to be for the family? I
And
remember I remember approaching my own father about this. And this is before I did this work. Like I've been doing this over 11 years. Dad died in 2013. And I remember years before that, there had been an article in the New York Times, which I'm very grateful for. It was entitled, "You Have to Talk to Your Parents About the Will."
mm,
And my dad lives in Buffalo, where I grew up. I'm in Los Angeles. So the next time I was visiting him, I waited for a moment that was very calm. We were going out for a walk. And I'd already prepared my thoughts and how I was gonna approach it. And I said, "Dad, there's something I need to talk to you about. And I want you to realize that, when the time comes and you're gone, I'm gonna miss you horribly. And I don't care what I get. I don't care about that. I just want to know that the will is airtight so that nobody ends up going to court or something like that." And we ended up having this wonderful discussion.
mm-hmm,
He was almost, I think, really like kind of relieved to talk about it.
mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it was that trip or later on, but I remember him calling me over to his desk and he opened the locked portion and said, "Okay, there's the trust. There are the bank accounts. There's the will." He showed me where the safe deposit box key was. And I was very honored by this because he trusted me not to go digging ahead of time. And I didn't. I waited until the time came.
Right.
But it ended up being wonderful, that conversation.
Yeah, I've always said that, you really should plan your estate. I mean, it doesn't matter if your, kids hold hands and sing on the way to church every Sunday. Plan your estate as though they're going to go to war over every last nickel, because that way, in your words, it's airtight. As we wrap up here today, and I really appreciate you giving us this time, what would you like to say to people, or what would you like to leave people with regarding this particular issue? How they should approach it, what they should be thinking about, all that stuff?
Well, I think it's, well, as I say, talk to them from begin the discussion from their point of view about planning for the future. Because I was very grateful to my father because he actually downsized so much. And then we cleared out the attics. He cleared out the basement, except for his tax returns going back to 1957. Thanks very much. But he was great because he did all that ahead of time, and try to encourage them by saying, again, what do you want your legacy to be? How about we start clearing things out now so it's more comfortable for you, and it's easy to access things both for you and then eventually when the time comes for us. But you have to acknowledge that I know this is a really hard conversation to have and this is difficult to think about. I get it, but I love you. And I want to have the time and just the mental space to really cherish you and care about when you're older, rather than getting frustrated because these things weren't done ahead of time. I want you to have the choice. I plan and create your choice to happen in the future. Right. Who gets what, etc. I hope that helps.
So get out ahead of it, but with the kind of sentiment that indicates that you're honoring them. I suggest we begin to talk about this because I really want to honor you as my parent, my elder,
my parent, the person who raised me.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And do it with honor, do it with love.
Right.
Let them know that you're doing this because you care about them and you want it to be your decision, or pardon me, you want it to be their decision about their future, not something you and your siblings are scrambling to put together.
Right.
At the time comes.
Right. Yeah. No, that's wonderful advice. Well, really appreciate your comments here today. I think this is so incredibly needed in the world today. And I know that there are, and I've mentioned this to you before, there are very few firms that do what your firm does as completely as your firm does it. And I want to stress that. And I have looked.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're very proud of what we've built at Clear Home Solutions.
I will say
very
that.
much for saying that.
So, again, thank you. We will be back next Tuesday morning, same time, same station. Thank you all for being here, and we look forward to more professional insights. Thanks, folks. Thanks, Marty.
Thank you.